Thanks.
Councillor Robinson, you're now live.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first cabinet meeting of 2022 here in January. Just apologies for absence, please, Mr. Bean.
There are no.
Any declarations of interest? No? Okay, just review the minutes of the meeting 14th of December 2021. Do I have a proposal for those minutes? Councillor Edwin, seconder, Councillor Moore. All those in favour to accept those as a fair record of the minutes? Carried unanimously. Okay. With no citizens' questions?
No, there are no.
Okay, so moving to item 5, which is the group leaders' questions. I understand that the group leaders aren't here this evening, so I'm going to ask, first of all, a question on behalf of Councillor Jen Walker. And the question will be to Councillor Moore. Can Rushcliffe use public procurement as a tool to deliver wider economic, social and environmental benefits that favour small, green, local businesses as opposed to larger corporations? Councillor Moore.
Right, the new procurement strategy, which will be discussed later, which is on this agenda, highlights the desire to utilise local businesses, if you'd like to see section 5.2 of the strategy, as well as emphasising both social value, which is in section 5.1, and environmental considerations, which is quite detailed actually, which is very detailed in section 5.4 of the strategy. There is not a one-fit-all solution in appointing contractors, particularly with large property or service contracts, often with more technical requirements and the risk of significant liabilities. Examples of these include leisure centre builds, such as the Arena in Bingham, and the council's insurance contract. The council also has to balance both the need for value for money for the taxpayer and its legal position. However, I can confirm this council is committed to utilising small business and systematically within its procurement process to ensure social and environmental value is pursued.
Question. Yeah, in terms of supplementary question on behalf of Councillor Walker, so how does the council and its partners engage with local SMEs to ensure clear, robust and efficient procurement process? Councillor Moore.
Again, I refer you to the procurement strategy on this agenda, and particularly section 5.2. This highlights what we're doing to ensure that there is a clear, robust and efficient procurement process. For example, an easy-to-use East Midlands tender portal. This matches that used by neighbouring authorities and providing timely feedback to businesses when requested.
Thank you. Okay, the second group leader's question is from Councillor Thomas, who also isn't here this evening, so I will ask that question to Councillor Edavine. The question being, policy H4 of the Hickling Neighbourhood Plan, H4, states that the ground-mounted solar photovoltaic farms will only be supported where A, you have previously developed brownfield or non-agricultural land. Assuming that cabinet members believe this policy is tenable, despite the country's pressing need for renewable energy, is the policy something they think should be included in other neighbourhood plans or in Rushcliffe's next local plan? Councillor.
Policies put forward in neighbourhood plans are justified by the supporting evidence provided, and it's the responsibility of those creating the plan to include and justify policies. In this instance, policy H4, pertaining to the positioning of photovoltaic cells, has been accepted by the examiner. With regard to our own local plan, it's too soon to say which policies are to be included, and any new policies will be considered over the course of the development of the revised local plan. Any policy included must be justified, and the level of evidence must be sufficient to support the justification. The level of evidence required to support a local plan is different to that required for a neighbourhood plan.
I don't have a supplementary question. I don't have a supplementary question for Councillor Thomas, so we can move now on to the item 6, the procurement strategy. Councillor Moore.
This is the procurement strategy update 2022 to 2025-26. This report updates the current procurement strategy and sets the council's procurement objectives until 2025-26. The report has been written with support from Welland Procurement, an organisation that advises many councils on both best practices and on national initiatives. And they're already advising us on our larger projects that we're involved in at the moment. There is currently a green paper on transforming public procurement. The government's aim is to speed up and simplify the UK's procurement processes, place value for money at their heart, and unleash opportunities for small businesses and other organisations. That's the government's words, not mine. In public service, they want to innovate in public service delivery. Much of this has been included in the new document. This comprehensive strategy document is a high-level statement of principles and policies and is subject to the Council's financial regulations and contract standing orders, and is supported by an internal procurement toolkit which sets out in more detail the procurement methods and practices for staff. This update sets out key principles which will enable the Council to demonstrate its leadership with regards to procurement, its commitment to being commercial, in its adherence to social, environmental issues, particularly climate issues, which are detailed on item 5.4 in the report, whilst also focusing on engaging with local businesses at the same time. All of these key principles I agree with. This is a good report and I welcome the input of Welland. Therefore, I'm very happy to support the recommendations which I will now read out. It's recommended that Cabinet A, adopt the procurement strategy 2022 to 2025-26, that any changes to the strategy until 2026 are delegated to the Director of Finance and Corporate Service in consultation with both the Council's Monitoring Officer and Portfolio Holder for Finance and Customer Access. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have a second? Councillor Brennan.
Thank you. I'm very happy to second this paper. In terms of the detail, I don't have a lot to add to what Councillor Moore's just set out. The paper addresses a range of issues and it clearly sets out the Council's response in very simple terms. It is a very comprehensive document and it has obviously benefited from the input of Welland Procurement. I read many, as many of you probably have, public procurement strategies and documents over the years. Governments of all persuasions have attempted to use public procurement for to secure a range of wider benefits. And it strikes me that the entire process has inherent contradictions in it in terms of securing value for money for the taxpayer, but also securing wider social, environmental and small business benefits. By definition, seeking to secure some of those additional benefits detracts from the core objective of seeking value for money. And every single government that I've ever worked for has all set their ambition as being, we want to encourage smaller businesses to be able to procure from the public sector. And without fail, the economies of scale have meant that the larger businesses have almost always succeeded in securing contracts. Every government has struggled with it, and largely, and in many cases, this was due to the EU procurement requirements for many local authority and public sector contracts, which were hopelessly incomprehensible for most small businesses to try to deal with, and many of them disadvantaged local businesses because they were competing against businesses from across the entire European Union, even for relatively small scale local contracts. So I'm really pleased this whole thing's being looked at again, and I really hope that the new national policy framework will provide a means for us to finally secure value for money, as well as the additional benefits that opening up public sector contracts can deliver. How best value and value for money is measured will be absolutely key. And despite the fact that might sound slightly cynical, I very much hope that government's new strategy will bring about a sensible reconciliation of the tensions that I think are inherent in all the ambitions about public sector procurement and contract opening. So I welcome the fact the document clearly sets out the Council's vision to secure those wide benefits from our procurement process in terms of value, in terms of social and environmental issues, and particularly in terms of engaging and enabling local businesses to bid, smaller and local businesses to bid for their own contracts. So I wish everybody luck in getting the added value from public sector procurement, because it's been something that has not been very successful over the last 20 odd years, but hopefully set free from the constraints of some of the EU regimen that was very difficult for local businesses to cut through. We will be able to secure those additional benefits, and I look forward to seeing that happen. And I'm very happy to second the paper and to second the recommendations of paragraph 2.
Thank you. Yeah, I think you make very good points there. The balance of value for money, again, encouraging local businesses, particularly now I think with COVID as well. Local businesses desperately looking for that opportunity with public sector, not just councils, but obviously other public sector organisations. And one of the things in rebuilding the economy has got to be, isn't it, to engage with that supply chain and hopefully get it much more competitive. I think the good thing on this report is talks here about engaging councils as well, and it just emphasises the importance of scrutiny. It's really important, as it says, that council member involvement and scrutiny involvement really makes for good governance, and I think this council does that very well. I think it emphasises it, something that we must continue to stress, more effective our procurement as we go forward. But any other comments? Councillor Reid.
Yeah, I'd just like to add to the fact that as a former business owner, I can certainly relate to the frustration of small businesses trying to access markets and opportunities in the public sector. And I certainly hear what Councillor Brennan is saying, but I really do hope that we can open it up to smaller businesses and local businesses. I think they can often deliver value for money against large businesses, to be honest.
So, all those in favour of the recommendations set out by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Brennan, carried unanimously. Move on now to item 7, which is the Hickling Parish Neighbourhood Plan. Councillor Eddie.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. This is going to be very brief because you will recall that we actually discussed the Hickling Parish Neighbourhood Plan in our October Cabinet meeting. And at that time, we made a recommendation to not fully adopt the examiner's report by discarding modifications 9 and 10 of that report. Just to remind people, that report, parts 9 and 10, related to potentially allowing development of a brownfield site to spill over into open countryside. And Hickling Parish Council wished not to accept the recommendation from the examiner that could have led to that happening. Because of the change to the examiner's recommendations, the revised neighbourhood plan had to go out to consultation, and now that's complete. It's interesting to note that all of the comments made in consultation supported the Cabinet's October recommendation, and this is now back for the final endorsement. So I'd like to propose that we accept the recommendation in paragraph 3, and that is the Cabinet confirms the decision not to accept the examiner's recommended modifications 9 and 10 to the Hickling Parish Neighbourhood Plan. B, approves the Hickling Parish Neighbourhood Plan revised decision statement and its publication. C, approves the holding of a referendum for the Hickling Parish Neighbourhood Plan, with the area of the referendum being the parish of Hickling. And D, delegates authority to the Director of Development and Economic Growth to make any necessary minor textual, graphical and presentational changes required to the referendum version of the Hickling Parish Neighbourhood Plan.
Have a seconder. It's Councillor English.
Thank you. Well, we all know Hickling's a delightful rural village, not just for its residents, but all the visitors it attracts on a daily basis. You know, we get a lot of anglers, ramblers and cyclists visiting, so it is a nice village that. I feel that it's important to have that village plan so the residents can influence their future developments within the parish. The reasons for the omission of parts 9 and 10 have been fully justified. As there's been no arguments or comments to oppose those being done, I'm happy to support the plan going forward to the referendum and to recognise the hard work that's gone into producing the Ealing Village plan, and to second the recommendations as A, B, and C, and D in the report. Thank you.
Okay, any comments? Sorry. Any comments at all on the neighbourhood plan? Again, very important. I think residents have worked very hard there, so I think you just really put on record the huge amount of work that's gone on with all the team, and also officers obviously working with them. These neighbourhood plans are very key in terms of setting policy. Look at the detail on there, you can see the detail they've actually been into to make these amendments and for supporting these recommendations as we go forward. So all those in favour of accepting the recommendation set by Councillor Hedvig? Carried, So that concludes the